It's Wednesday, September 23. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis. Schools were physically to reopen on October 5. However, those plans have been tweaked in response to the rising curve of COVID-19. On Tuesday, Education Minister Favour Williams announced the measures intended to get students safely back in the classroom.
Today, we are confirming that schools will be considered reopened on October 5th, 2020 to deliver formal education to students. The important question is, what approach will schools use to deliver the teaching and learning experience? Schools will use a combination of approaches. First approach is the online approach, in which students remain at home and access lessons via the ministry's learning management system, in which teachers and students will be in a virtual environment. The teachers will be able to teach online. The lessons will be recorded, and the students will be able to access at their convenience and as many times as they would like, and this, we believe, will help to improve the mastery of the subject matter. Approximately 20,000 teachers have been trained on this online learning management system, which is a cloud-based system. The second approach is that the ministry will be providing lessons or the platform for lessons using TV, cable, and radio. TVJ will be providing a dedicated channel for 24 hours, and also CVM, in collaboration with Ready TV, will also be providing a 24-hour dedicated station starting on October 5th. Students will get classes via TV, cable, or radio, and the ministry will provide the schedule. The third approach is that the ministry will provide printed material for students to utilize along with their textbooks and worksheets at home. These will be delivered to agreed drop-off points and at home, and this approach is particularly applicable for students without internet access.
Minister Williams was speaking at a virtual press brief on Tuesday at Jamaica House.
We recognize that schools can and will use a combination of these approaches where possible and appropriate and safe. Many principals have asked us about the possibility of students coming to the classroom, especially for those schools in remote, deep rural communities. Principals have even said to us that they'd like to be able to focus on the exam cohort, and in some cases where there's a lack of supervision at home of students by their parents, they would like those students to come into the classroom as well. We're going to be guided by the health-related information, the completion of the health inspections in schools, and so over time, depending on how we move through this pandemic, we will know better how to bring students back in the physical environment in a safe way.
The Caribbean Examination Council CXC says 98% of candidates who sat this year's CSEC and CAPE exams attained acceptable results. Mathematics and English language recorded percentage passes of 52% and 82% respectively. Simone Absalom has more in this report.
Over 200,000 students sat the CSEC exams. Analysis shows that 76.5% of the students attained grades 1 to 3. Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Favour Williams, gave the breakdown.
In grade 1, 18% of the subject entries were successful in grade 1, 28.6% in grade 2, and 29.8, or roughly 30%, in grade 3. The figures are also broken down by males versus females. Total subject entries for males were 93,093, with 91.4% being sat and 63,395 attaining the required grades. On the other hand, total subject entries for females were 140,630, with 95.1% being sat and 104,074, or 77.8%, attaining grades 1 to 3.
Minister Williams says 55.6% passed mathematics and 83.9% passed English. As for CAPE,
42,431 entries for CAPE Unit 1, with the total number of sittings being 39,562. Of this number, 36,469 attained grades 1 to 5 for a 92% pass rate. And again, in the press release, we've supplied you with a table that breaks down the percentages by the different grades. In grade 1, 14%, grade 2, 22%, grade 3, 23.6%, grade 4, 20%, and in grade 5, 12.8%.
the minister says this year's results cannot be compared to 2019, since the process was altered due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Administration of at least one common paper, paper 1, multiple choice assessment, that was combined with school-based assessments, and paper 032 for private candidates. And also included an award of final grades based on the modified SBA and multiple choice assessment. Normally, the exam is paper 1 multiple choice and paper 2 short answer essay questions. This year, they only did the multiple choice because of the disruption of schools and the inability to complete the syllabus. Paper 2, which is a short answer essay question, was not offered. Paper 2 would have required sitting of the exam at schools.
The Education Minister was speaking at a digital press conference held at the Ministry's offices on Wednesday. Simone Absalom reporting for the news on PBCJ.
We now get the latest COVID-19 update from the Health and Wellness Ministry.
As at Wednesday morning, Jamaica's COVID-19 death toll stands at 76 after one death was reported. The latest mortality is a 61-year-old female of a St. James address who had multiple comorbidities. 126 new positive cases were also reported. This brings the island's total case number to 5,395. No more new recoveries were reported on Tuesday, and that total still stands at 1,444. That leaves us with 3,792 active cases. It is also disclosed that there are 31 moderately ill and 7 critically ill patients. A total of 119 persons are now hospitalized, while 19 persons are quarantined in a government facility, and 3,649 are quarantined at home. At this time, there are 471 imported cases and 264 cases of local transmission, while 740 are contacts of confirmed cases. 236 are associated with the St. Catherine Workplace Cluster, and 3,684 cases are under investigation. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
Plans are being laid to establish 4 field hospitals in Jamaica to provide more bed spaces for treating persons with the novel coronavirus COVID-19. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, shared the details at a recent digital press conference at Jamaica House.
The first one is a collaboration with the United States government and that was delivered last week. The facility is now being installed at the National Chest Hospital. It's a 40-bed facility. We have had some differences in the numbers, but I think it's 40 beds to confirm, okay? In the first instance, that is. And there'll be an official handing over this week. I think it's Thursday. And shortly after, that facility will be commissioned for use. And we're putting in place all the equipment that's required. It does come with some equipment. We will add some additional equipment and, of course, the personnel to man that facility. The other will be a facility, again, 40 beds, that will be based at the Mandeville Regional Hospital. And that is being negotiated with a Canadian company with the support and assistance of the Canadian government. Then we have two others that we are going to be building out, meaning building a frame and then equipping them. One will be at St. Joseph's Hospital, which is a 36-bed facility, and that will commence shortly, I'm told. The other will be in the West, Falmouth Hospital, a 36-bed facility. So all told, we're hoping to add 152 beds in short order that will be committed to the COVID response, meaning to those who need hospital care.
The government will extend the curfew measures as community transmission of the COVID-19 virus continues across the island.
2 weeks ago, we had announced tightening of some of our measures for an initial 2 weeks period. Given that we are now in what is called the community transmission phase, we will now extend these measures. So the island-wide curfew time will remain at 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. until 5 a.m. on the 7th of October 2020.
Speaking at a Jamaica House virtual press brief on Tuesday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the administration had planned for the eventuality of this widespread phase of the outbreak.
Yes, the upsurge that we have had in cases would have caused great panic. And I see it all across the society. And the deaths in particular would have raised even greater concern. I'm very careful when I say that the government, by virtue of understanding how pandemics work, planned for this eventuality. We understand that this would and could happen, and we planned for it. So the country should not feel as if, you know, the Ministry of Health is at sea or the government is at sea and this is happening and we are not in control. You will recall that in many of our press conferences, we have pointed out that this could happen. We were always trying to delay it from happening.
Jamaica is part of the World Health Organization COVID-19 Global Access Facility called Covax. Covax is the vaccines pillar of the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator. It is reportedly a groundbreaking global collaboration that is working on the development, production, and equitable access to COVID-19 treatment and vaccine. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says all Jamaicans will be able to access freely, when approved, a safe vaccine for COVID-19 through Covax. Marlon Samuels has the details.
Pharmaceutical companies and research labs are conducting trials to find an effective vaccine to protect the world from COVID-19. At the same time, there is mounting fear that if and when a safe vaccine is developed, small island states including Jamaica will be at a disadvantage, as there won't be enough to go around and the cost may be very high. An unprecedented step has been taken to ensure that all countries have equal access to a safe vaccine. The international effort is called Covax. Covax is a groundbreaking global collaboration. It's designed to fast-track the development, production, and equal access to COVID-19 tests, treatments, and vaccines.
Once a safe vaccine becomes available, we are committed to making it available to all Jamaicans who wish to obtain it. Let me say that this is not the first time that we have placed this information in the public domain. I recall maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, we made it absolutely clear to the public that once there is a safe, tried, tested vaccine, that Jamaica would ensure that we are able to access that vaccine and make it freely available to all who would want the vaccine. And I want to stress that. We will make it freely available to all who would want the vaccine. Jamaica has been very conservative, very cautious in approving and using new medicines, vaccines, tests. We have an ethics committee in the Ministry of Health. Our health professionals, you know, sometimes I'm saying to them that you need to look at these things a little bit with a little bit more willingness to accept and absorb. But they maintain a very high standard. And they also align their approvals with that of the highest authorities on these matters in the world.
A number of labs in Jamaica are also conducting tests in the race to find a vaccine for COVID-19. Meanwhile, effective October 1, Jamaica will ramp up antigen testing for COVID-19. 80,000 test kits are expected to arrive in the island shortly.
Antigen testing will be for persons who are symptomatic and will be done at suitable sites and approved laboratories. The implementation of the antigen testing will be piloted at major hospitals and health centers and at the National Public Health Laboratory. While the PCR test remains the gold standard, the antigen tests achieve a high degree of reliability at a fraction of the cost when they are used strategically. We will also be assessing and approving private laboratories to conduct COVID-19 testing. All private labs conducting testing will be mandated to report the results of their tests to the Ministry of Health.
For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
The 75th General Assembly of the United Nations, now ongoing in New York, has so far been dominated by discussions surrounding COVID-19. We get more in this report.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is calling for global solidarity to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. In his centerpiece address to the General Assembly, Mr. Guterres characterized the pandemic as practice for challenges to come.
Our world is struggling, stressed, and seeking real leadership and action. Excellencies, we face a foundational moment. Those who built the United Nations 75 years ago had lived through a pandemic, a global depression, genocide, and world war. They knew the cost of discord and the value of unity. They fashioned a visionary response embodied in our founding charter with people at the center. Today, we face our own 1945 moment. The pandemic is a crisis unlike any we have ever seen. But it is also the kind of crisis that we will see in the different forms again and again. COVID-19 is not only a wake-up call, it's a dress rehearsal for the world of challenges to come. We must move forward with humility, recognizing that the microscopic virus has brought the world to its knees, and we must be united. We have seen when countries go in their own direction, the virus goes in every direction. We must act in solidarity. Far too little assistance has been extended to countries with the fewest capacities to face the challenge. And we must be guided by science and tethered to reality.
The UN Secretary General also addressed concerns that COVID-19 could also see progress on gender equality pushed back by decades, as women and girls are overwhelmingly affected by social and economic fallout, including in areas such as employment and education.
Women do most of the unpaid care work generated by the pandemic, and women have fewer economic resources to fall back on because their wages are lower and they have less access to benefits. At the same time, millions of young girls are losing their chance of an education and a future as schools close and child marriage is on the rise. Unless we act now, gender equality could be set back by decades. We must also stamp out the horrifying increase in violence against women and girls during the pandemic, from domestic violence to sexual abuse, online harassment, and femicide. This is a hidden war on women. Preventing and ending it requires the same commitment and resources that we devote to other forms of warfare.
Due to COVID-19, most world leaders will not attend the general gathering at the UN headquarters. Instead, many have pre-recorded their speeches on video, although they have a right to deliver them in person from their seat in the hall, not from the podium. Simone Absalom for the news on PBCJ.
A probe has been launched into a video posted on social media depicting adults watching as a toddler smoked and drank what appeared to be alcohol. CEO of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, Rosalie Gage Gray, is urging anyone who knows the child or relatives of the child to contact the agency. She describes the video as disturbing and child abuse at a serious level. The Cybercrimes Unit is reportedly involved in the investigation. Times of crisis always provide opportunities. With that in mind, financial gurus say despite the current pandemic, now is a good time to invest in the stock market. Luckily, Jamaica enjoys one of the best performing stock markets in the world. For the latest indices and other market movements, we join host Gabriel Thompson for the Business Report.
In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 3,642 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 85 stocks, of which 34 advanced, 36 declined, and 15 traded firm. The Junior Market Index declined by 22 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services, CAC 2000 Limited, and Consolidated Bakers Jamaica. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, and Barita Investments Limited. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, Berger Paints Jamaica, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Lumber Depot Limited was the volume leader with 5.5 million units, followed by Pulse Investments Limited with 5.3 million units, and Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with 2.3 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Tuesday, September 22, ended trading at $142.22. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $107.29. The pound sterling traded for $182.51, and the euro ended trading at $169.98. Oil steadied on Wednesday, trading close to $42 a barrel, with a report that U.S. crude inventories unexpectedly rose, capping prices, and growing numbers of coronavirus cases around the world raised the concern of stalling demand. Brent crude futures rose 23 cents to $41.95 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 13 cents to $39.93 a barrel. And that's it for this edition of the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
September is recognized as Sickle Cell Disease Awareness Month. In this episode of Living Healthy, host Simone Absalom looks at sickle cell and the management of pregnant women with the disease.
Sickle cell anemia is an inherited red blood cell disorder in which there aren't enough healthy red blood cells to carry oxygen throughout your body. There is no known cure for most people with sickle cell anemia, but there are treatments to relieve chronic pain and other ailments often experienced by patients. One area of complication is pregnancy. Let's start with contraceptives. Medical officer Dr. Patrice Simmons-Brooks says the use of contraceptives is low for ladies with sickle cell anemia.
When you think about the presence of mortality and morbidity, as in death and complications related to sickle cell disease, is 7 to 11 times more likely to occur in a woman with sickle cell disease. Pregnancies must be planned for everybody, but much more with persons with sickle cell disease. So contraception is actually a part of practicing wellness.
Dr. Simmons-Brooks says most types of contraceptives are acceptable for use.
You have several options. So the Depo-Provera, which is the injection. You have the intrauterine device, which is the coil, or the copper T or the Mirena. Mirena is a hormone-based coil, while the copper T is a copper-based, is non-hormonal. Oral contraceptives, and there is no increased risk of clots as compared to the general population when you're on oral contraceptives with persons with sickle cell disease, and other devices such as the Norplant or J-Del, which has been shown to decrease painful crises.
Pregnancy for a woman with sickle cell disease can negatively affect mother and child.
In terms of maternal complications, you can have more painful crises, increased risk of urinary tract infection, lung complications such as acute chest syndrome, anemia, preeclampsia, which is high blood pressure in pregnancy, and we have to discuss there's a risk of death. For baby, there is the risk of having a premature baby, because if it is that you have preeclampsia, which is a high blood pressure in pregnancy, to cure preeclampsia, to get the pressures down, to prevent you from having a stroke, they have to deliver the baby. So the baby may be not term, so baby may be less than 37 weeks, but to save your life and to save the babies, that they may have to deliver the baby in the at 34 or 33 weeks. Low birth weight, and that may be explained by there is an abnormality in the placenta for mothers with sickle cell disease that have preeclampsia, fetal distress during labor, and higher risk of death in the baby.
The medical officer explains how expecting mothers with sickle cell anemia are treated at the University Hospital of the West Indies Sickle Cell Unit.
When they come in and a sickle cell delivery, a person with sickle cell delivery, we monitor these patients closely. Most persons that have sickle cell disease, once they present to the sickle cell unit, we refer them to a high-risk clinic. So once you're pregnant with sickle cell disease, you're referred to a high-risk clinic. And in a high-risk clinic, it is a multidisciplinary clinic. So you don't have just the gynecologist, but you have other members. So remember earlier I was saying that persons with sickle cell have a risk of heart complications, have a risk of kidney complications. We want you to attend a clinic that has cardiologists. Pulmonology should be a multidisciplinary team that is managing your pregnancy, and the earlier you come, the better.
Over in Barbados, the Caribbean Examination Council CXC has been lauded by the country's education minister for its handling of exam results despite the ongoing pandemic. More from Barbados Today.
The Caribbean Examinations Council has been applauded for taking a modified approach to this year's CAPE and CSEC exams in the face of the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. The accolade came from Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, Santia Bradshaw, during this morning's official release of the July-August 2020 examination results. Bradshaw said while the pandemic brought its challenges, CXC pushed ahead with CSEC and CAPE to ensure that no child was left behind and to preserve the integrity of the exams.
In the modified approach, which was adopted by CXC, an unprecedented step was taken to revise the examination strategy, with a view to ensuring that candidates would be awarded valid grades through the assessment of critical competencies while minimizing the potential disruption of the education system. Throughout our discussions, it was clear that the sole intent of CXC was to maintain and preserve the integrity of the examinations. For those of you witnessing this event, you may not have been aware of the adjustments made by CXC this year, but I wish to share that candidates were primarily assessed on their performance in the multiple choice paper, paper 1, which was used as a common paper for all candidates, and the school-based assessment, or SBAs, or the alternative to the SBA for private candidates. In other words, with the exception of modern languages, human and social biology, and visual arts at the CSEC level, candidates did not have to write the traditional paper 2 this year.
Minister Bradshaw added that despite the negatives, there were some positives due to the onset of the virus, chief among them the transition of the region's education systems.
CXC has shown us what is possible when as a region we work together. This year, due to the challenges associated with the administration of examinations, the later than usual release of the 2020 results, and the need to accommodate many students who are eagerly awaiting their results for matriculation into tertiary institutions, both regionally and internationally, CXC has moved away from its established practice of releasing results to the ministries of education in the region prior to the release to the candidates. Again, a positive as a result of COVID. Today, CXC will be releasing the official results for the CSEC and CAPE examinations to the ministries of education and candidates simultaneously. This change will give the candidates the opportunity to access their results in a timely manner and engage the institutions of their choice immediately to complete their matriculation.
In sports, we have a follow-up to a story we aired yesterday. The sexual assault case against national junior record holder Kevin Nedrick in Minnesota of the United States has been pushed back by more than a month. The case was scheduled to begin on Tuesday, but the prosecution requested an adjournment. The case will now be heard on October 28. His US $1,000 cash bail was also extended. The shot putter is facing third-degree criminal sexual conduct charges. He was arrested and charged in August over allegations that he raped a woman in her campus apartment. Nedrick was about to start his senior season at the University of Minnesota prior to his arrest. And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place, for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.